The name Comancheros means signing up for danger, life risk, and other wrong deeds. Now imagine a man who's used to being in charge and intimidating others. What happens when the tables turn on him? Let's find out. This is the story of Tarek Zahed, a man who thought he was invincible until he wasn't. Tarek Zahed, also known as the Balenciaga Bikie, was born in Sydney, Australia on June 21, 1980, to parents who had left Lebanon during the Civil War. Tarek found himself in trouble with the law from a young age. At 15, he was convicted for assault and resisting arrest. In 2001, he ended up in jail for 8 months after he let his dogs attack a woman during a road rage incident. 3 years later, he was back behind bars for severely injuring a man during a drug deal gone wrong. Later, he served more time for shooting a man in a wild chase. Around 2012, Tarek Zahed officially became a member of the Comancheros, an infamous Australian biker gang known for their involvement in criminal activities like large-scale drug smuggling. Before joining, Tarek had been hanging around the gang for many years. Over time, he worked his way up within the gang and eventually became the National Sergeant-at-Arms, responsible for keeping the gang members in line. Although Tarek was quite well known within the gang circles, he managed to stay out of the spotlight and avoid major trouble for a long time. He was also close to Mark Buddle, the then president of the Comancheros, and was considered his right-hand man and trusted advisor. Mark Buddle, known for his role in large-scale drug smuggling, became a prime target for Australian authorities. After he escaped the country on a private jet, the police turned their attention to his close associates, including Tarek Zahed. This put Tarek under intense police watch. The authorities seized every chance to catch him, signaling that they were keeping a close eye on him. Previously skilled at avoiding attention, Tarek soon found himself frequently entangled in police investigations. In June 2019, this scrutiny led to his home being raided by Strikeforce Raptor, Australia's special task force aimed at cracking down on biker gangs. During the raid, the police took several luxury items from Tarek's home, suspecting they were bought with money from his illegal activities. Although Tarek had no official job, he lived a lavish lifestyle filled with designer goods. This raid wasn't about a major crime, but it was another way for the police to show Tarek that they were watching him closely. Over the next 2 years, Tarek frequently found himself dealing with the police. On January 16, 2021, security cameras at Crown's new Barangaroo Casino caught Tarek in action. He was filmed near the bathrooms of an Italian restaurant, having a tense conversation with a man. Tarek got up close, pointed his finger aggressively, and eventually slapped the man across the face. Tarek slapped a man named Mohammed Aouli, who was believed to be a younger member of his group. After the incident, someone quickly moved Mohammed back into the bathroom, and they closed the door behind them. What happened next inside isn't clear, but it likely wasn't just a friendly talk. No one knows the exact reason for their argument, and it's not known if Mohammed pressed charges against Tarek, who was on parole when this happened. Tarek was later charged for using violence to scare others, and this caused him to lose his parole. Trying to avoid arrest, Tarek ran away, but was soon caught by police in Melbourne. They took him back to Sydney, where he spent a few months in jail before being released again. In March 2021, police in New South Wales took further steps by starting legal actions to put strict limits on Tarek and 2 other high-ranking members of his gang, Ali Bazi and Mohammed Hijazi. At the same time, Mark Buddle, who was out of the country, was reportedly still involved in sending drugs into Australia. To tackle the problem at its root, NSW's police decided to closely watch Tarek's closest allies. They asked the Supreme Court for permission to track their every move, money transaction, and conversation. This, they argued, was crucial to fight organized crime and weaken the Comancheros gang. Superintendent Rob Critchlow explained, "These men have ignored the law too many times, which is why we're now using serious crime prevention orders to minimize the danger they pose to the people of New South Wales. We believe they will continue to be involved in illegal activities like drug trafficking, theft, fraud, money laundering, violence, bribery, and possibly even murder. We need to use every tool we have to stop them." The Supreme Court faced a tough choice because such invasive monitoring is rarely approved. However, On September 1st, Ali Bazi learned that the court had decided in favor of the NS Dollars police. This meant they could keep an eye on his every move, transaction, and message. The rules set for him were strict. He could only use one email account and was banned from using 18 different communication services, including Wicker, Proton Mail, Telegram, and WhatsApp. He couldn't wear any Bikie gang colors or items, wasn't allowed to contact other Comancheros, and couldn't post any gang-related images on his Instagram. On the brighter side, he was still allowed to ride his Harley Davidson. Before the court could decide on Tarek's case, he left Australia. On September 10th, he flew out on a Qatar Airways flight, despite strict travel bans during the pandemic that kept many Australians grounded. Interestingly, he managed to get a special exemption to travel on compassionate grounds, and he took off to Turkey with his wife and child. The police were doubtful of his reasons for leaving and were frustrated because they couldn't legally stop him. Although Tarek booked return flights, the police were pretty sure he wasn't planning to come back. Police authorities criticized the border force for letting one of Australia's most wanted men slip away. As a reaction, they immediately issued a green notice through Interpol to track him down. Unlike a red notice, a green notice from Interpol warns that someone might be a criminal threat. This notice quickly showed its effect. When Tarek arrived in Turkey, he was not allowed to enter the country. He then traveled to Lebanon, where he was also greeted with an arrest instead of a welcome. In court in Beirut, Tarek told the judge he didn't want to go back to Australia and was trying to become a Lebanese citizen. His lawyer said Tarek was afraid of what might happen if he returned to Australia, and it turns out he had reason to be concerned. However, Lebanon didn't grant his wish, and he was sent back to Australia, where he definitely wasn't welcomed warmly. Back home, the Supreme Court decided Tarek's fate would be similar to Ali Bazi's. The NS Dollars police got the green light to keep a close watch on Tarek's every move, his money dealings, and his communications. The news report on May 11, 2022, hinted at more trouble for Tarek. It began with the events of the previous night. Around 8 p.m., Tarek and his younger brother Omar were relaxing in the lobby of BodyFit Gym in Auburn after a workout. Suddenly, two men burst in and started shooting. They were clearly on a mission and didn't hold back, firing many rounds at the brothers. Tragically, Omar died right there from his injuries. Tarek was severely injured. He was hit in the head and his body was badly damaged.
Good evening. 20 bullets in 20 seconds. That's a terrified witness account of Sydney's latest gangland shooting. Comanchero Bikie boss Tarek Zahed is in a critical condition.
He even went into cardiac arrest, but paramedics arrived quickly to help him. Meanwhile, the shooters escaped in two Audi Q7s. One was driven 4 kilometers away to Barala, where security cameras recorded it being set on fire. The second Audi was taken to Greenacre, where the suspects tried to burn it too. This time, however, destroying the evidence wasn't so straightforward. During the attack on Tarek Zahed at the gym, 2 suspects struggled to set their getaway car on fire. One of them finally succeeded with a Molotov cocktail, nearly injuring himself in the explosion. Meanwhile, Tarek was in critical condition at Westmead Hospital, with 9 gunshot wounds in addition to a head injury. Despite the grim outlook, expert medical care helped him recover significantly, though he lost an eye. The investigation later found that a jammed firearm during the attack may have spared Tarek's life, as it likely prevented further shooting. Law enforcement officials who reviewed the full CCTV footage of the attack, footage that hasn't been made public, considered it the work of novices. One officer explained that if the gun hadn't jammed, one shooter might have accidentally shot his partner. Omar was hit first, then as one shooter chased Tarek, he accidentally ran in front of the other, and that's when the gun jammed, preventing a friendly fire incident, the officer noted. Can you imagine that? The attackers almost took each other out right at the scene. Despite the chaotic attack, it wasn't a complete shock to the brothers. They had been warned that trouble was likely heading their way eventually. Just a week before the attack, NS Dollar police had explicitly warned Tarek and his brother Omar that their lives were in danger, with Tarek having a particularly large bounty on his head, rumored to be at least $1 million. Assistant Commissioner Michael Fitzgerald explained, the 2 brothers were informed last Thursday that they were marked men and had been at risk for some time. He added, they had been warned numerous times, but chose not to follow the NS Dollars police's advice or use our resources to leave the state. Despite these warnings, Tarek often posted photos of himself at the gym on social media, a risky move that could easily tip off potential attackers about his whereabouts. An underworld source told the Daily Telegraph, "Anyone with a hit on their head should avoid having a routine." But Tarek was at the gym regularly, even daily. Gyms are ideal spots for attacks because targets are usually unarmed. Sticking to such a routine with a bounty on your head is practically an invitation for trouble. So, why didn't Tarek and Omar heed the warnings? Was it pride, or did they feel invincible? And who was responsible for placing it? The police were unsure if Tarek Zahed's shooting was due to internal conflicts within his gang, the Comancheros, or an attack by rivals. After recovering from the incident, Tarek appeared in social media posts by the Comancheros' new leader, signaling his return. In August 2022, Tarek made headlines when police forcefully arrested him in Sydney after he refused to exit his car. They used non-lethal rounds to break the car windows and apprehend him, citing safety concerns due to his past. The arrest was linked to an old case from December 2014, where Tarek, his brother Abdul, and another man were accused of kidnapping Youssef Assoum, believed to be from a rival gang. However, in February 2024, the charges against Tarek and Abdul were dropped, adding another twist to Tarek's controversial history. Both men admitted to lesser charges after their lawyers negotiated a plea deal with prosecutors. Tarek pleaded guilty to hindering the investigation into a serious crime, a charge that could land him up to 7 years in prison. If he does receive the maximum sentence, any time he's already spent in jail will be subtracted from this. The potential sentence could have been much harsher if he had been tried for the original charges. A final decision on his case is expected later this year.